Hey, how's it going? This is Adam with Adam's Coast Chronicles, and I want to share my thoughts on Dorney Park. I will be going to Dorney Park later for their haunt event. Currently, I'm on my way to Hershey, which I'll do before, and then I'll go to Dorney after that. But I want to go ahead and talk about Dorney Park a little bit, because this is a park that I've been to a lot this summer, and in my opinion, is a little bit underrated. For a couple of reasons. Dorney Park is one of the smaller parks in the Cedar Fair chain. It kind of has a reputation for being kind of the throwaway park, like the park where Cedar Fair basically sends all their rides that aren't useful at the bigger parks anymore. So they have like a lot of hand-me-down coasters and stuff like that. And it is smaller, and they haven't really gotten a new ride just for them in a while. That being said, I still think Dorney Park is a good park. I mean, they've got all the coasters are good. I mean, there's not really a bad coaster unless, Thunderhawk is kind of hit or miss. I've had some really fun rides on Thunderhawk, but I've also had just really not so great rides on Thunderhawk. It just kind of depends on the day. It is an old woody, so it's pretty rough. But it's got some fun, it's got like this one like really actually surprising pop of airtime that I wasn't expecting the first time I rode it, which is pretty fun. But yeah, so one of the main reasons why I like Dorney Park so much is, being in this area, I'm about the same distance away from Dorney Park as I am from like Six Flags Great Adventure. And Six Flags Great Adventure is a much bigger park. It has more rides and a lot more like extreme high thrill coasters. But Dorney Park, I've been there several times this summer, and even on a Saturday at Dorney Park, like there's really hardly any lines at all for the coasters. There have been a couple times where it's gotten a little bit busy, but like generally, like most rides there, and most of the times I've been pretty much walk-ons. Like on average, I think the longest wait I ever get at that park is on Steel Force. And the longest it's ever really been is like 20 minutes. So you're talking like, you're waiting like maybe 10-15 minutes at the most for like most of the coasters in that park. And for me, that's like a huge advantage, because like, yeah, like I could go to Six Flags Great Adventure and I'm going to have more rides to do and some bigger rides to do, faster rides and all that. But I'm also going to wait in line for every single one of them for at least 30 minutes, if not like 45 minutes to an hour during the summer. There are times you can go to Great Adventure and there not be horrible lines, but generally it's pretty bad. Like, so like I like going to Dorney Park because it's, where it is in Pennsylvania, you got Knoebels close to it and you got Hershey close to it. So and because Dorney is small, and because it's not really small, it's like a medium-sized park. But because Dorney is like not super huge, and because you can usually get through all the rides pretty quickly because there are no lines because everybody's at the water park, it's definitely worth like stopping there like all the time. One of the main reasons too why I go there is because I bought the Platinum Pass this year for Cedar Fair because I wanted to go to other parks, which I did do. I went to Dorney, I've been to King's Dominion, Carowinds, and Cedar Point, all of those parks this year that I got into on my Platinum Pass with free parking and all that, which I got at Dorney Park just because that's my closest park. So I like going to Dorney a lot, especially because like if I'm going to go to a park on a Saturday when it's going to be miserable in a bigger park like Great Adventure, like sometimes I like going to the the smaller park, but being able to get on a bunch of rides like several times. And like I said, I'll get through quickly, so usually I'll go to another park, so it's really easy to hop around. Today, I'm doing Hershey, and then I'm going to Dorney because I want to go to Dorney's Haunt, which should be good. So I personally think Dorney's a little bit underrated, because like a lot of people complain, oh, well, none of the rides are like really that big or that great or anything. Personally, like I like the rides. I mean, I would agree that they're not like the best. I mean, none of the coasters there are in my top 10 or really even close. But they're still good rides. Like, they're not bad. My favorite ride in that park's Talon. Talon is kind of unique for an inverted coaster in the fact that it doesn't mainly just focus on inversions. Like most B&M inverted coasters are really pretty much all about positive G's and inversions, which is fine. But Talon, I mean, it does that, but it also has like some other interesting elements. I mean, it's kind of like a medium-sized inverted coaster. I mean, it may be closer to the small side, but it only has 4 inversions. And it only needs 4 inversions. I mean, it's got a vertical loop, which is pretty good. The implement, then it goes into a 0G roll, which is okay. It's a little bit on the slower side for 0G rolls just because it's so tall. And then it's got the implement, which is good. But then you do this kind of helix, angled helix, that's like kind of high up in the air. So it's like kind of the middle point between like the bottom, like between the ground essentially and the top of the lift. So you're not going super fast, but it is pretty forceful. And then you do kind of what my favorite part of the ride is you actually do this drop in the middle of the layout. And you actually get like a little bit of airtime on it. Not like prolonged airtime, but you get a little pop of airtime, which is cool on an inverted coaster. And there's not really a whole lot of inverted coasters that I've been on. I've been on several of them at this point that have like an airtime element. Like that's what the element's for. But it's cool because like, you do these big elements. So you do like the loop is pretty big, the 0G roll's high up, and the implement's pretty big. So like proportional to the size of the ride, those are really big elements. I mean, they're still pretty decently forceful. I mean, not nearly as forceful as like some of the other inverts, but they're still pretty decently forceful and good elements. And then you have kind of the middle point of the ride, which isn't really dead because you do a helix, and the helix is pretty good. But then you have the back half of the ride, which in my opinion is my favorite part of the ride, because after you do all this, you drop down and you stay really low to the ground for like the rest of the ride, and you drop and you do like a fast overbank turn, which is good, and then you do a corkscrew, and then you do kind of another helix, all low to the ground, and take it pretty quickly, and then you kind of go up and do one last little dip into the brakes. So for me, what I like about Talon is that it's unique in that it's not just about inversions and positive G's. It has kind of a good flow to the ride, a good flow to the layout, because it's broken up by kind of the middle section of it, and has that nice dive that goes down to the ground and gives you a lot of speed towards the end of the ride. And there's no mid-course, so it's a good ride. I mean, it's definitely not my favorite invert, but it's definitely, I like it a lot. Hydra is one of the newer coasters in the park. It's the newest one, at least, that they custom built for the park. And it's kind of a unique floorless coaster. It's not the best floorless coaster because it's not super tall, it's not super forceful, but it's still a really fun ride. I mean, the JoJo roll, I like the JoJo roll a lot, which is basically the roll where, like, literally as soon as you leave the station, you just do like a twist barrel roll kind of thing, essentially, but it's taken really slowly. I actually like it a lot. I think it's fun. And then you turn and you go up the lift, and it's really not very tall at all. But it's kind of unique because instead of doing a drop turn like you would typically do on really any B&M, you do just a straight down, just a straight drop. It's not super steep, but you do a straight drop, and it's not very big either. But you get airtime on the drop, which is fun. Again, and another thing where it's like a B&M looping coaster actually has some airtime on it, which is nice. And then you do kind of this turn, which is okay, and then you do these 2 0G rolls, one after the other. Then you do a cobra roll, and you come back up, and you get kind of another little pop of airtime after you do this other little dip that goes into the corkscrew, and you do another helix, and it's done. And it's not super fast, it's not super forceful, but it is fun. Like, it's fun the whole time. So then there's nothing wrong there, in my book. I mean, like I said, it's not my favorite floorless coaster by any means, but it's still fun. And you usually walk right on it. There's not ever a line. And then you go more towards the back of the park. You do have a wild mouse, which is a wild mouse. I'm not a huge fan of wild mice, but it's, it's okay. It's a wild mouse. And then you go back towards the back of the park, and you have Possessed, which is an impulse coaster, an intimate impulse coaster. And it was relocated from Geauga Lake, so it's one of the old Geauga Lake coasters. And it's a lot of fun. I like the impulse coasters. I mean, it's not as big or as tall as like Wicked Twister, which is the biggest one, but it has the twisting spike going forwards, and it has the just a straight vertical spike going backwards, which I think is a lot of fun, especially if you sit in the back seat. Kind of like the second time you go up that spike, you go up pretty quickly, and it's kind of a cool sensation to go backwards and be looking straight down at the ground when you do. And then it also has the holding brake at the top, which I think is really cool because like it holds you there for a second. You kind of jump forward a little bit before it drops you again. So that's actually, it's one of the best rides in the park, really. And it's a lot of fun. It's not, as forceful of a launch as like you get on other launch coasters, but it's still a lot of fun. Then you have the Stinger, which is an inverted boomerang, and I'm not a huge fan of inverted boomerangs, but it's better than a normal sit-down boomerang, and it's not bad. Like as far as boomerangs go, it's really not bad. I usually skip it just because I don't need to do it. Then you have Thunderhawk, which I talked about before. It's not, I like it okay. I've had some good rides on it and some not so great rides on it. So it's okay. I wouldn't call it bad. And then you have Steel Force, which I really like Steel Force. It's one of the few Morgan Hypers that we have. And it's not, the Morgan Hypers, it's really the only one I've been on, but it kind of reminds me of kind of the feel that you get when you're on like Magnum in terms of the ride experience. It's actually a little bit smoother because the angles aren't as strict like they are on the Arrows. And it's got good airtime on it. It's got good speed. It's got good airtime. And it has that awesome turnaround, which is basically just a giant helix, but you start up pretty tall on it, and then you wrap around and you get closer to the ground as you do. So it's actually like a pretty forceful helix turnaround. And then you hit the mid-course, which unfortunately it does have the mid-course. I feel like the mid-course shouldn't be there. Then the return run's pretty fun. I mean, it's not as good as like Magnum's return run, but you still get really good airtime on all those hills. So Steel Force is a lot of fun. I like it. I mean, it's not like, it's not like a super smooth, like a B&M Hyper, but it's still pretty good. So really, Dorney Park, in my opinion, like, it's worth visiting if you're in the area. I mean, I wouldn't, like, take a trip from far away, specifically just to go to Dorney Park. But if you live around, in the Northeast, it's worth a visit. Or if you're visiting like another park, like if you're going to Pennsylvania to go to Hershey Park, you might as well go to Dorney because it's fun. It's a fun park. They've got a really good flat ride collection too. They got an S&S drop tower, which has one side where you go to the top and drop, and the other side where you shoot up from the ground. They have an one of those old Intamin drop rides. I forget what the model of it's called, but there's called Demon Drop, where you drop and then you kind of lay flat. After that, they've got some older flat rides, which are cool. They actually have a lot of flat rides, so they got a good flat ride collection. And then they have like a really awesome water park, which I've never actually been to their water park because I'm not a huge water park guy. But on all accounts I've heard, they've got a good water park. And the fact that like the majority of the people at Dorney Park are typically at the water park tells me that it's a pretty good water park. So if you like water parks, you can go to the water park. It's one gate admission, so you can go to the dry park and the water park on one ticket, which is nice. But yeah, like, I like it because it's not usually ever super crowded. I can get through it quickly, so I can do more than one park in that day that I go to Dorney. You can get a Platinum Pass. You can go to all the other Cedar Fair parks. Yeah, so Dorney Park, like, I mean, it's definitely not my favorite park. It doesn't have, by any means, like, the best roller coaster collection or anything like that. But it's got good coasters. It's got good rides. It's overall, it's a fun day, and It's pretty easy to get around too because it's not super huge. So you don't have to walk super far to get to anything. But there are a lot of hills. You have to do a lot of hills. But yeah, so those are, you know, Dorney Park, not a bad park. I think it's a little bit underrated. I mean, I think it's still a fun park to go to. I don't think it, you know, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is, basically. But yeah, so today I will get to Dorney Park for their haunt stuff. It'll probably be dark by the time I get there. So I'll mainly probably just get video of the haunt stuff. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on Dorney Park.